It's time for our August 2018 plan with me. This is my birthday month and I wanted to do something really special, and I think I have come up with something really fun and different. Our theme for this month is going to be the language of flowers. This is a mammoth tutorial. We are going to illustrate many different flowers. We're going to do a monthly cover page, a calendar page, some collage, some watercolor, and more. So let's get started. Welcome to my studio. Come on in. Just a little housekeeping to get out of the way. I'm sure you guys know that I release a tutorial every Friday, but I also release bonus tutorials on the odd Tuesday. So make sure you subscribe to the channel so that you're not missing those. There's already been one in July. We were doing how to get noticed on Instagram and that kind of thing. And speaking of bonus stuff, there is bonus content every Friday, stuff like this beautiful leaf print that I made to go along with the last week's tutorial on watercolor leaves. And then this week, because we are doing bullet journaling, you can grab the planner printables, my monthly cover page that you can print and paste in your own planner. It's all over on Patreon for just $2 a month. Okay, so first thing, I just got a new journal. My other one was full. This journal is a Baron Fig. It's about 5 by 8. It's a dot grid page and a beautiful fabric cover, and I will link it in the description below. It's a little smaller than what I was working with, and I'm in love with it so far. Really nice pages, really nice paper. Now I'm gonna start off my journal and my month of August with this 2-page illustrated spread. I'm gonna illustrate the language of flowers. So for anyone that doesn't know, there is this wonderful language of flowers, and flowers have these secret or not so secret meanings. So a red rose is passionate love, a yellow rose is joy, mint is virtue, calla lily is beauty, and this comes out of the Victorian era, and it would have been a way to communicate feelings. And we'll get more into all of this, but first I want to start by drawing some flowers. And here you can see I'm drawing a fern, and fern is one of the first ones we're doing because the meaning of the fern is the magic bonds of love. Isn't that crazy? That's such a good meaning. And so I'm just doing this big wispy wobbly fern. And now I'm gonna do gardenia. So with gardenia, let's talk a little about this. You're starting with these sort of row upon row of petals, and they're getting bigger and bigger, and they come to a bit of a point. And everywhere between two petals, you want to put another petal going out and out and out. And then you just want to add some big, simple leaves, and that's the gardenia. Now the meaning of gardenia is secret love. So many of these do have to do with love. I will mention that right away. Okay, the next one we're going to draw is chamomile, and chamomile is like this mini daisy. You start with these big centers, these big circles, and then these tiny little petals, and they'll have a yellow center with white petals, and then they have these sort of fennel frond like leaves, these very wispy leaves and little buds as well, and that's the chamomile flower, and the bud is usually what you would see dried for tea. So that's what I'm drawing there. And the meaning of chamomile is patience. Okay, next we're going to draw the bluebell. This is a really fun plant to illustrate. You just start with a few curved lines. They can go out in any direction. And then the flower of the plant are these little bell-shaped flowers that sort of hang off those lines. You can add a few spiky leaves, but the real fun of drawing this is just in adding these little bell-shaped flowers. And they really don't have to be perfectly shaped. They could be round, they could be sort of rectangular, they could be perfectly bell-shaped. It doesn't matter. And then just add a little bit of shading on the leaves, add a little bit of shading, line shading to each side of each flower, and that's the bluebell. And the meaning of the bluebell is kindness and humility. So that one's quite fun to draw and would also look nice in a larger piece. And that's what we're going to do later, is we're going to take the flowers that have the most meaning to us and have the sort of virtues and passions and meanings that we like, and we're going to create our monthly cover page with those. So keep in mind which ones you might want to use for your monthly cover page. The next one I'm illustrating here is a rose, and all the different colors of roses have different meanings. And we've done many roses on the channel, but you just start with a couple of small petals and you keep going out and out and out and adding more, and they don't have to be perfect. I'm just doing this sort of big, open, floppy English rose. Do a couple of leaves, and the leaves have lots of little veining. add extra line shading on one side to give a little bit of depth. And that for me is going to be a pink rose, and the pink rose means happiness. Now I'm also adding a little rosemary. Rosemary is for remembrance, and you can just do a few lines going off in whichever direction, and then they just have these very, very thin leaves, and they're very fun and simple to draw. And as I've always say, rosemary is great for filling in space. So figure out where you need that rosemary to sit in your piece, in your sort of whole design, and that's where you should place it. I'm also going to illustrate some daisies. They represent innocence and they're fun to draw. Just start with that round head or stamen and do some floppy petals. These are very perfectly imperfect. Now I want to mention that our August plan with me is sponsored by Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with classes in art, design, business, photography, and more. All the classes are taught by experts in their field, so you can continue learning forever and ever, and you can take on new hobbies, something that I love to do. Skillshare is also super affordable. It's less than $10 a month for an annual subscription. Check it out using my link. You'll find it in the video description below. Next we have jasmine, and jasmine is a favorite scent of mine. Jasmine represents sweet love or the sweetness of love, and it is very similar to the gardenia and the rose. It's that flower where you're drawing the 4 petals and then adding extra petals sort of in between each pair of petals. You can add some little buds and leaves or half open flowers. These are shapes that we've done many times on the channel, and remember, it doesn't have to be perfect. We're just sketching and illustrating and creating a little bit of movement. Add some whimsical petals that look like they're blowing in the wind and a few buds to fill in space. We'll also do sage. Sage is for wisdom and immortality, which kind of makes sense, that wise old sage. And very simple, sort of rounded leaves, rounded ovals that come to a bit of a point. And then I like to just put a line down the middle and shade one side with some line shading to give it a little bit of depth. I'll also do mint. We've done herbs many times on the channel, but if you are new here, the mint, just pairs of leaves going down a stem and getting a little bit larger as you go towards the bottom of that stem. And they sort of have a ragged edge. They're a very toothy leaf. And again, you can add some line shading to one half of the leaf to show that depth. And mint is for virtue. Next, we'll do pansies. Pansies are for thoughts. I think, is that from Hamlet? Ophelia has a pansy for your thoughts? Maybe not. So the pansy is these 4 floppy petals, sort of 3 petals in front with that big floppy one in behind, and then just a little bit of shading where you would see that dark, dark purple. And next we will do the lilac. Lilac represents the joy of youth, which I just think is perfect because lilac to me is that first bloom of summertime, so there is something quite youthful about that. And this one is fun to illustrate. Start with a bit of a stem and a heart-shaped leaf, and then you're going to almost draw these tiny little blossoms, almost as if you're drawing popcorn. Just get very free with it. Some of the blossoms might have 4 little petals, just like that perfect little flower, and others might just be little curly cues and lines. Add a few lines to the leaf to finish it off, and that's that. That's the lilac, the joy of youth. And the geranium comes together in quite the same way, where you're drawing all these tiny little 4-petaled flowers, and they come together to make up this larger shape of a flower, whereas the lilac is kind of, I don't know, banana shaped. The geranium, it's just this big round bloom made up of the tiny little flowers. And the geranium is a symbol of true friendship, which I think is so great. And I didn't even know that when I named this shop. I just love geraniums because they're so quintessentially summer. Like everybody has a geranium on their porch, at least in Canada. Next we have the magnolia. This was a really fun one to draw as well. You have these 3 big petals sort of emerging from a tiny V shape, and then some other petals sort of in behind those first 3, and you can play around with that. Doesn't have to be perfect. Every flower, every bloom is different. They are on sort of a branch, so I like to make the branch a little sketchy, make it look like wood, and maybe do 2, one a little larger than the other. They tend to grow sort of like that in pairs. And then with the magnolia, the shading is the most important because it has that pink that's so rich at the bottom of the petal and then turns almost to white by the time it reaches the top of the petal. So a bit of line shading really brings that to life. And the meaning of the magnolia is love of nature. So I really like that one, and I'll probably incorporate that into my cover page. Now, once we're done illustrating all of our flowers, then it's time to sort of go through and add all the names of the flowers, add their meanings. I took some notes. All the meanings I used, my source was the Farmer's Almanac, so there could be differences of opinion out there, but that's my source. And then once you've added all the text to your final piece, we're gonna go through and choose the flowers that you want to incorporate into your monthly cover page. So I'm going to use the jasmine for sweet love. I'm going to use sage for wisdom. I'm going to bring some wisdom my way. I'm going to use magnolia because of my love of nature, and I'll probably incorporate the fern as well, just because I do want that magic bond of love. Okay, but you could use anything. You can follow along with me, or you could say, you know, I really want to put mint in there for virtue, or the pink rose of happiness. And yes, so we are going to think about which flowers we want to use, and then I am going to flip the page and we're going to get started on our August 2018 cover page. So here you can see I'm doing another bordered in illustration. That's one of my favorite things to do for the monthly cover page, is to create a little border. And what I'm going to do is create a motif of flowers on the opposite corner, so the bottom left and the top right. And I'm just sort of sketching and having fun. I'm incorporating the fern, which is the one I'm drawing now, the jasmine, then I'm going to put the magnolia up in the top. So it's really fun. You've already practiced drawing all the flowers if you followed along with the 2-page illustration, and now you can practice drawing them in different manners, in different sort of forms and ways, and you're just gonna have fun incorporating the flowers that you choose, and it sort of sets this fun, beautiful intention for the month ahead or the year ahead if your birthday's this month. So you can say, you know, I wanna pull that magical love towards me. I want to get me some wisdom, and we're going to do that through flowers and illustration, which I think is pretty cool. Once your corners are filled in with flowers, you can write the month in the middle. Do it in pencil first. I always find that's helpful, and then I'm just going over it in pen. Fill in the border wherever the leaves and flowers are not, and just pull the pen towards your body when you're drawing that border. Try to keep it straight, and that's what it looks like. Very simple cover page, and the cool part is, of course, that the flowers all have a meaning for your month. Okay, moving on, you're like, what are you doing with the tracing paper? So I thought it would be really fun to turn this 2-page illustration into a watercolor piece that you guys can actually print. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just gonna kind of fly through it. All I did was trace it and turn it into a sort of 1-page illustration by transferring all my little drawings and moving them around and playing with the layout. And then I just added a little watercolor color. And then I, of course, went over it with my sketchy black line. I'm using my black pen here. And I really just want to make this piece pop with the illustrative style that we used in the first piece, in the journal piece. You can see the geranium comes together the same way, but we've just started with a bit of a wash of color, and then we're going over it with the exact same sort of illustrative guidelines that we did in the first piece. Again, I've left all the writing for the end so that I can kind of decide where each word placement looks best. And I'm using 2 different fonts. I've used a cursive for each flower name, just a simple print for the meaning, and that will be available on Patreon to print off and hang in your home or put in your journal. Okay, next page, we are going to do a fun collage. And what I found out when I was looking into flowers and their meanings is that each birth month also has a flower. And for August, it's the gladiola. So these flowers were pretty North American centric. It's like lily of the valley for May and mums for November. And if you're in Australia, you're like, what? But anyways, there are these birth month flowers, and maybe you guys have different ones in the Southern Hemisphere. But anyway, glads are the August flower, which I love because because they're one of my mom's favorite flowers and mine too. And so I sketched some out here, and they are like, just start with a long stem and then these very rough circles going all the way down the stem. And I just kind of put a little bit of ripped paper. I sort of changed it up, a little bit of washi tape, colored in my illustration with some markers, and then I wanted to make it look sort of very scientific. And so I was just writing in simple cursive some of the Latin names. It's also known as the sword lily, and it comes from the iris family, so just putting in some of that info. And then on the opposite page, I of course wanted to do my monthly calendar. I put August right in the center, simple lines coming out from there, and then I drew in my grid. And you always want to lay that out in pencil, or at least I like to, just to make sure I get everything straight and right. When you're doing the lines, pull the pen towards your body. That's how you keep it steady and straight. And then of course just go through, add your numbers, and you just have this very simple, perfectly imperfect calendar. I think the collage looks fun there. The calendar looks whimsical and perfectly imperfect, as I said. And then all I want to do to sort of finish off this theme and this month is to continue with the flowers. So out of that line that I drew beside the August 2018, I'm going to add again this motif of flowers. And in this one, I'm going to incorporate the gladiolas. And actually, here's a funny thing. When I was putting together the Language of Flowers piece, I was like, I wish there's a flower for strength, because I would really like that in my cover page. And then when I was looking up the meaning of the gladiola, the birth month flower, it was strength. So how nice is that? So if you want to incorporate the idea of strength into your monthly cover page, you should also illustrate the glad. And you can see that's just sort of, I did the illustration on both sides. It kind of, the flowers and plants sort of are reaching above August and kind of meeting in the middle, but it's just very loose and whimsical. So to start off this journal, I have the Language of Flowers page, my August cover page, a little bit of collage, and then my month at a glance, or my monthly calendar, I guess. I'll erase all my pencil lines, and that's all done. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I just love this idea of a language of flowers and their secret meanings, and that you can set an intention for your month through flowers. So pretty and so fun. And I want to thank Skillshare again for sponsoring today's video. Chris and I have both been obsessed with our Skillshare membership lately. He's been doing all kinds of courses in sound editing and music production. I've been doing some in leatherworking, and if you guys are interested, there are so many watercolor ones too. Last week, the tutorial I put out was all about watercolor. It did really well. It's such a popular topic right now, and I've noticed a lot of really cool modern watercolor classes on Skillshare, so check them out. You can head over there right now using my link, and the first 500 people to use my link and sign up will receive a bonus 2 months tacked on to their yearly subscription. So head over there, first 500 people, bonus 2 months. Okay guys, thank you so much for watching today. I wish you a happy August. My birthday is August 9th. Head over to Instagram. You can wish me a happy birthday and let me know which flowers will you be incorporating into your monthly title page. I can't wait to hear. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and if you want some of that bonus content, those planner printables, head over to Patreon.